I'm sure.
I know who the new Bond is. Pedro Pascal. Pedro Pascal. He's everything. Whether you want him or not, he's everything.
Dude, I'm going to say it right now. I am so sick of Pedro Pascal. And it's not his fault. It's not his fault. He's a working. He's getting out there. He's a little bit, but I'm just sick of seeing his face in everything.
Yes.
It bothers me when somebody's overexposed and they don't give other hardworking actors a chance, because the acting profession, let's just say 0.003% of them actually make the money that the A-list stars make, and then it falls sharply off a cliff after that. So it does irk me when you have like one actor playing different superheroes in DC and Marvel, sometimes two characters in Marvel, like Chris Evans. I don't know. It's just, like, you got such a massive pool of really great talent, and for some reason you keep giving the same guy every job. And if he's hot, that's one thing, but when you overexpose him, then everybody starts getting kind of like, chat. Let me be honest. Are you kind of like, okay, I'm over Pedro Pascal, or are you like, give me more? I want more. I want him in every role that's, would you want him as James Bond? I need my chat to tell me right now.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. I was just joking. Hopefully everyone can pick up. Sometimes I don't know. Yeah, I think I kind of agree with what is it, Super Tenors in there saying, it is his fault. He's insufferable. I kind of agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination of him being like just really annoying personally, and then overexposed for sure. And
dude,
sometimes
I loved him in Game of Thrones. Like when he was in that season of Game of Thrones, I was like, this dude's awesome. And he's freaking, you murdered her, you raped her, your children, and he's fighting the mountain. And man, that was a badass scene. I don't know if you guys watched Game of Thrones, but wow, man, his season was excellent. Season 5. I think.
And that can happen where somebody is like, you're really pumped on them at the beginning, and then it starts being like, whoa, now this person's in everything, and this guy doesn't even look like Reed Richards, and he's playing Reed Richards. Like, well, what's happening right now? Like, have they lost the plot? Does Disney know something about this guy that we don't know, and he's just so they're putting him in everything?
Can we break right here and just for like 5 minutes talk about Fantastic Four and Superman? Because I just need to get some stuff off my chest. Okay. I when Fantastic Four, the first trailer came out and everybody got excited about it, I was just like, this is going to fail. It's going to fail. Yeah, when something's new and shiny and it comes, everybody's like, oh, it's set in the 60s. It looks cool. But they're telling the exact same story as the second movie in the Fox run. And we all know how those two movies did. And I think they're fine movies, but when you compare them to like the bigger movies that were coming out, the Spider-Mans back then, the X-Men movies, those were kind of the like, okay, if I have to watch a superhero movie, I guess I'll watch Fantastic Four. And I think here we are, we're telling the same story. And I don't know, man. I'm like, I root for any movie and I hope it does do well. But to me, the new Fantastic Four just, I don't know. It just looks, I just can't get excited about it. Before we jump over to Superman, I want to hear you guys' thoughts, or do you even care? Okay, because that's fine too. Nick?
As far as Fantastic Four goes, guys, I've said before, I'm not an MCU fan.
Right.
I haven't seen most of the movies, so I won't be checking it out. All I have to say about that movie is, kind of it might peek and see what, not in theaters, but, later down the line, see how they handle Galactus,
Yeah.
That might be cool, but that's really all. That's really it. Hey, happy for everybody that's happy though.
Yeah. Same here. Davey, are you a superhero guy?
I do, but I'm like it sort of just depends. Like I've always thought that the Fantastic Four were, kind of boring. They were, they did sort of save Marvel back in the early 60s, but I think they're, kind of stuck in that era, which I guess makes sense for this film that they're doing. I do think the best aspect of the entire film that I've seen from the trailers is the production design and putting it in that mid-century modern, early to mid 60s era. And that's not the best thing. That's what I think is most exciting about this movie. I do think that I think Pedro is like a terrible cast. I would have loved somebody like Josh Hartnett as Reed Richards or something like that. Somebody that actually looks like Reed and feels like just a little bit younger, or at least looks a little bit younger. Pedro, like, I don't know how old he is. He looks old for how old he is. And it looks like we're getting a Reed that I don't know if there's a confidence thing going on there or if he has any leadership qualities at all. And you know, I think that that's an issue that the MCU seems to be doubling down on, is just sort of ignoring, you know, what people like about these characters and what people like about these stories, and trying to push their own vision of how they should tell these stories instead of, you know, giving most of the fandom what they want and still having an experience that's satisfying for everyone. So my excitement on Fantastic Four is just kind of Galactus looks great, but you figure with Galactus here and with what we saw in the post-credit scene of Thunderbolts, that this world is going to be destroyed by the end of the film. So you almost like pretty much know that already, that this is going to be eaten. The Fantastic Four are going to jump dimensions and enter our modern world. So the next time we see them is going to be some fish out of water for all of those characters. And I just think that there's just not very much exciting about these guys. They're not the X-Men. There's not that dynamicism and you know, all the interesting kind of, you know, character qualities that the X-Men have. I just think the Fantastic Four are kind of plain, and that's one of the reasons why it hasn't worked.
Yeah. They're kind of the first of something, and they're not the new and improved. And I think, you know, because I think they were one of the first families in Marvel in the comics. If you know, correct
Marvel was crumbling at the time when Stan Lee and I don't know if it was Ditko, I think, or put this together, or if Jack Kirby was one of the original artists. I know he's big later on, but yeah, it was one of those things where this saved Marvel. Like, they wouldn't have been able to, you know, X-Men didn't start off as popular as it was, even though they started right around the same time. It was like Fantastic Four and Spider-Man hit in like 61, 62. And that's what sort of like brought, you know, dragged Marvel's dying body like back to life.
I'm curious about Nick here for a sec, okay? And I'm curious about anybody that says they're not a fan of a certain subgenre. Then I like to try to whittle in and like kind of hone in on, okay, let's see if I can crack the code though. So Nick's not a fan of comic book movies, but hold on. But I'm sure you've watched some. So do you have even though it's not like your biggest genre, I got two questions for you. One, do you have a favorite? And two, do you tend to, I'm just guessing here, but I'll bet Nick probably likes, if he has to watch one, it's got to be something on the darker side of things. Am I wrong there, Nick?
No, you're not. I would say that for me, it's not that I'm not into comic book movies, because I used to go see a lot of those back in the day. Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, like obviously Raimi's trilogy, like it was more so when the MCU was exploding, I got to a point where I was like, I'm 20 movies behind. Like I can't dedicate enough time like to get caught up in this. So it was more so that. Now my favorites, some of my favorite comic book movies, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I don't give a shit what anybody says. I love that movie. The Batman, I think, is the best Batman movie. I struggled with that in The Dark Knight for a while, but I think The Batman is a better movie. Yes, The Dark Knight has a better villain, but give me Pattinson's portrayal of Batman over Bale's 10 times over. And that Gotham and Reeves' universe is just, it's insanely good.
I can read Nick like a book. I knew it. I guarantee you he likes what I like.
Well, yeah, and Amazing Spider-Man 2 is depressing. It's dark. It's
I love Amazing Spider-man 2. With the freaking gears thing when he catches Gwen. Man. That scene is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
And also, fuck them for thinking like, we need to take the scene out of the movie where his dad shows up at the cemetery. Like, no, you should have kept that scene with Peter and his dad. That scene is fantastic. Andrew Garfield is an Oscar-nominated actor for a freaking reason. Yeah. Those are some of my favorites. I really, really dug Man of Steel as well. Not so much Batman versus Superman, simply just because I felt like it was overlong. I've never been a big fan at all of Affleck's Batman. I just haven't been. And
interesting. Very
It's
interesting.
never been my portrayal. Love Cavill though. Which I think is going to be a good segue into Superman, which is a movie that, although I think Cavill is the best Superman, I'm stoked for this movie. And I think David Cornsweet was the perfect casting decision. And this is a movie I will be there on opening day for.
Guys, you want to hear about a hot seat? I was on Cecil's Superman stream back when I think the first trailer came out for this new Superman movie. I didn't know where those guys were as far as what was their flavor for Superman. Okay. I'm a Snyder guy. That doesn't mean I'm a Snyder cultist or anything. That just means I prefer the darker approach. Man of Steel is one of my all-time favorite freaking superhero movies. I love Batman v Superman Ultimate Cut. I think Zack Snyder's Justice League is almost perfection. I love that trilogy to death. But
too goddamn long.
Yeah.
Too long though.
But that hot seat that I was sitting in, every single, it was 5 of us, all 4 of the other guys, it was just a massacre. They all were shitting on Zack Snyder's trilogy like you wouldn't, like you read about. It was just insanity. And I was just sitting there like, and I'm the last one around the room. And you got Cecil. I fucking hate it. It's a piece of shit. And then you got Adam. They're freaking destroying buildings. How dare they? And then you get to freaking cosplay Chris. Same thing. They get to me. I'm like, I kind of like it. It's just out of nowhere. But that's part about, fandom. And we all just have different. I like the darker shit. I can't help it. Maybe there was something wrong with my pacifier when I was a baby and it made me like darker shit. I don't know, but
yeah, dude, like the Batman and Davey, I'm interested to know what you think about the Batman, because I don't know if I've ever really heard you talk about the Batman. But I know Lee was a big fan of the Batman, and I'm a big fan of the Batman. And I just that is one of the few comics I did read growing up, and like it constantly gets misremembered that like Batman wasn't always this like crazy gadgets and superhero action sequences and stuff. Like, no, I loved Reeves's take. Like, he's kind of like a detective in a way. Yeah. He's also kind of like this brooding emo kid that like is depressed, and like I love that world so friggin' much. It didn't feel comic booky. And I think I loved that about it. Like, dude, Farrell is the Penguin. I don't know. But, Davey, where are you at with the Batman?
I loved the Batman. I have wanted a true, like a real detective version of Batman for such a long time, because he's supposed to be the world's greatest detective. He is like a ninja meets Sherlock Holmes. And we've never seen that. There's one scene in the whole Dark Knight trilogy where he like he does like a ballistics test with a bullet in a brick to find out where the bullet came from. That's the one thing that we get. And then this movie in the Batman with Pattinson, I loved how he and Jeffrey Wright's version of Gordon were like a team, like they're a partnership. Even the police don't really like that Gordon is bringing Batman in to do these things. And I loved that the Riddler kind of gave me these Michael Myers meets Saw kind of vibes. There was something so creepy about his like wide eyes all the time with that mask and the glasses. So the tone of that movie I really enjoyed. And yeah, I thought Pattinson was great. That's a version I've been waiting to see. I do like the Ben Affleck version of Batman because he's so hulking and large that to me he looks so much like the version that we see like in the Dark Knight Returns in those comics. And guys, people say that Batman doesn't kill. Well, in the very, like, if you want to take it all the way back to the OG Batman days, he had a gun and he shot people and laughed at them after he killed them. And I know there's a big gap between that and the Batman we know, but when people say, oh, this character doesn't kill characters, they're just regurgitating something that they heard somebody else say and they don't really know it themselves. So I'm cool with a character. I'm cool with a character that makes mistakes, gets better, learns from all of that, and actually has a frigging character arc and isn't perfect from the outset, which is what we get in a lot of these, especially, I'll just say it, with a lot of the female characters that they put in these comic book movies. They have a really tough time making them well-rounded, flawed characters, except in like the Thunderbolts movie, which is why I really enjoyed that one.
It's crazy, Lee. You're a big Snyder fan. I want your opinion on this because when they released the final trailer for Superman and you see the like heat vision scene where he's spinning around. And I saw a bunch of Snyder fans being like, Superman doesn't kill. He's just recklessly doing this. This is stupid. And I'm sitting here going, do we forget that like Cavill's Superman, like they destroyed Metropolis? Like,
he snaps Zod's neck, you know?
Yeah, he killed Zod. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
you know, here's my thing about...
They'll find anything to complain about.
Yeah. My thing about changing things up with a character, including killing, it depends on the reason for the killing. I think everybody has a code that can be broken. So when people come in and they get all bent out of shape because a character breaks a code that no, they shouldn't be doing that, unless it's like certain things that like cross the line like way too much, like with children or something like that. But when it comes to like violence and murder and death, everything to me is fair game. So you're not going to get me pissed off if you say, oh shit, God, did you hear Superman? He kills somebody. He literally killed somebody. And I don't, give me the context. Why did the person die?
I think it goes even beyond that because, you know, comic books, whenever a new writer takes over or gets to have like a sub-series or something, they get to kind of reinvent the character. So one of the conversations, you know, I'm real good buds with Cecil. We hang out all the time. Like we just went and saw Megan 2 last night. We always talk about Superman and, you know, how he's feeling based on the next
Cecil
trailer or whatever. But what I told him is I was like, Cecil, we've had so many most of the movies that we've gotten of Superman have been the good old boy version. Like, that's awesome. I thought it was refreshing that Snyder's version was different. And then look, after 2 movies, well, I guess 3 movies, we're right back to exactly what you want. And we've already had, you know, 5 of those, of that version of the character before, if you include Superman Returns with the original Christopher Reeve movies. So like, I think the new Superman is going to be better than the Fantastic Four. And I think it is going to be pretty good. I don't expect it to really wow me because I think there are certain things about Superman's character that are never really going to like reach certain heights that I look for in a comic book character, but not everyone is like that. I'm really excited for Cecil and everyone that loves that, you know, good American boy interpretation of Superman.
Too.
Yeah. But I don't want petulant teenage, like complaining to Lois for doing her job well, Superman. I hope that's a very small part.
Yeah,
and
it does worry.
And I've seen Lex so much, and I get it. But guys, even if you look at the Batman movies, the Joker isn't showing up in 95% of the Batman movies. But for some reason, we always have to have Lex. And I don't know. Hopefully, Nicholas Hoult brings something.
Much. When the first Man of Steel came out, we didn't know who the villains were, and I was like, "Shit, they're gonna fucking throw Lex Luthor in there, and it's gonna be the same old thing." When they said Zod is gonna be the villain of Man of Steel, I was like, "Oh my god, somebody heard my prayers!" Because the very first movie I ever saw in my life in a theater was Superman 2 when he fights Zod, and just the idea of Superman being this indestructible freaking Man of Steel force. Fighting 3 of him, you know, Zod and Zod's 2 henchmen, literally they overpower Superman. So what does Superman have to do? He has to use his wits. He has to trick them. Whereas, you know, I guess he kind of has to do that with Lex, but it's a different sort of thing. Like he could freaking, you know, he won't kill Lex.
Well, and also,
he could if he wanted to, just like that.
Also, Superman has to like question, like, does he really belong? You know, they sort of give him that. Like Zod gives him that to think about, you know, you don't belong here. Like you're one of us. Like, what are you doing protecting these people? So yeah, I think there's a different wrinkle there. And, you know, I just think I'm hopeful for this new Superman movie. But yeah, I mean, to me, it looks like it's probably going to max out at like a B-, maybe a B+, but maybe it'll surprise me.
I will say, I'll give you a nugget, and I can't say the name. A friend of mine who, let's just say he went to a CinemaCon type event, right? And they got to watch, let's just say, I think they got to watch like 20 minutes, something like that. They got to watch 20 minutes of, and it might not have been the beginning, but Jurassic World Rebirth, which you 2 have seen, and the new Superman. Everybody came out, they watched Superman first. Everybody came out and was like, what the fuck was that? And then this is not my opinion. This is his words. This was the reception of the audience that came out of that theater after watching 20 minutes of Superman. They were like, everybody was like, I don't know, something's off. Everybody, when they came out of Rebirth, they were like, oh fuck yeah, that's what I wanted. That was awesome. So take
I
that for what
almost
you will.
wonder. I almost wonder if, since this is rebooting Superman again, and it's a different tone, different actor, different universe. They're trying to build an entire, new DCEU. I I almost wonder if this is one of those movies that, like, you have to get the full experience to fairly critique the movie.
Yeah,
You
I
know what
agree.
I mean?
I agree with that, Nick.
Like, Big World, I can watch 20 minutes of, like, highlighted scenes they show and go, oh, fuck yeah. But, like, for me to, even it was the same way with Man of Steel. I had to grow with Cavill's Superman throughout the movie. And then by the end, I was like, dude, I love this guy as Superman.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't instantaneous. I'll actually be honest. The stuff at the beginning on Krypton, I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't think it's a strong opening for Man of Steel. I never have felt that way. Mainly probably because I just want to get to Superman. But as the movie goes on, you get more and more invested in Cavill. And by the end, you're like, yeah, this is Superman now. Like, this is my guy. I'm almost wondering if this is one of those movies.
Yeah. The Christopher Reeve Superman, you don't even get to Superman until maybe like an hour into the movie or something like that. So at least in Man of Steel, they took that into account and they were like, hey, we need to try to hurry things up. So let's maybe bounce back and forth to show a little bit of him as a kid, but let's focus on the meat of it is him being Superman.
Well, hello there. You just watched an outrageous clip from the Hit the Bricks podcast. I really hope you enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more clips, you can click here or you can click here. And you can just have yourself a ball, all right? And also follow the Hit the Bricks podcast on Spotify as well. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful day.